In 1958, Hannah Arendt published what remains one of the most penetrating diagnoses of modern life ever written. Her work, The Human Condition, emerged from a specific historical moment, the aftermath of totalitarianism, the Holocaust, and the dawn of the atomic age. But its insights reach far beyond that context. Arendt observed something profoundly troubling. Human beings were acquiring unprecedented power to manipulate their environment while simultaneously losing their capacity for genuine freedom, meaningful action, and deep thought. We were becoming better at making and consuming, but worse at being free. For over 2000 years, Western philosophy operated under a stable hierarchy. At the top stood the vita contemplativa, the contemplative life of the philosopher who gazes upon eternal, unchanging truths. Below it, serving was a mere instrument, stood the vita activa, the active life of doing, making, and engaging in politics. This hierarchy traces back to Plato and Aristotle, who, witnessing the chaotic execution of Socrates, grew deeply suspicious of the unpredictable world of human affairs. In this classical view, the active life was necessary only insofar as it kept the body alive and maintained the material conditions that allowed contemplation to occur. Politics, craftsmanship, and even heroic deeds were ultimately subordinate to the quiet, solitary act of thinking about eternal verities. Arendt's first major theoretical intervention is to challenge this hierarchy without simply inverting it. She does not dismiss contemplation. Thinking remains valuable, but she insists that the active life possesses its own independent dignity, its own internal logic, and its own unique capacity for freedom. The vita activa is not merely a servant to thought, it is a realm where human beings appear to one another, disclose who they uniquely are, and initiate something genuinely new in the world. This revaluation is urgent because modernity has collapsed all human activity into a single mindless category, that is labor. We have forgotten the differences between making, doing, and merely surviving. Restoring these distinctions is the central task of Hannah Arendt. Before Arendt can analyze the three activities that constitute the vita activa, she establishes the spatial and conceptual map within which those activities occur. This map consists of two fundamentally distinct realms, the private and the public. In the ancient world, the private realm was the oikos, the household. Arendt emphasizes that this realm is governed entirely by necessity. Human beings have the biological bodies that require food, shelter, warmth, sleep, and reproduction. These needs are non negotiable. They press upon us with the force of nature itself. The household is an organic, cyclical space where human beings wrestle with natural processes. Cooking, cleaning, birthing, and subsistence farming all follow patterns of consumption and replenishment that never reach a final endpoint. In this realm, there is no equality and no freedom. The head of the household rules over others through command and force because the task of survival must be organized efficiently. Violence and hierarchy are natural to the household. Arendt makes a striking claim about privacy. It is literally a state of privation. To be hidden away in the private realm is to be deprived of the things that make human existence distinct from animal existence: visibility, speech among equals, and the opportunity to leave a lasting mark on the world. The private realm is not evil. It is essential for survival, but it is not the realm of freedom. The public realm is the absolute antithesis of the household. In ancient Greece, this was the polis, the political community, or as Arendt beautifully phrases it, the space of appearance. You can only enter the public realm once you have successfully mastered or escaped the biological necessities of the household. A starving person cannot be a citizen. A person exhausted by labor cannot appear as an equal among peers. The public realm rests on two sacred principles: equality and distinction. Equality does not mean that all citizens are identical, it means that within the public realm, no one rules over anyone else. Decisions are made through persuasion, debate, and speech, never through violence or command. When you enter the public square, you leave behind the hierarchical chains of the household. Distinction is the complement to equality. The public realm is a stage where individuals can show who they uniquely are, not merely what they are, their social role or biological characteristics. Through great deeds and memorable words, a person can create a lasting human identity that outlives their mortal body. The public realm provides common world, a durable shared space that brings people together while keeping them distinct, just as a table gathers people around it while separating them with its surface. With the public private distinction established, Arendt introduces her most famous analytical work, the three fundamental human activities of labor, work, and action. Labor corresponds to the biological process of the human body. Its condition is life itself. When we labor, we act as animal laborants, the laboring animal. Examples include farming, cooking, cleaning, washing dishes, and working an assembly line. Labor has a cyclical, never ending rhythm. You cook a meal, it is consumed, and you must cook again tomorrow. You wash the floor, it gets dirty, and you must wash it again. Labor produces nothing permanent. It creates consumer goods that are destroyed almost as quickly as they produced. The purpose of labor is not to build a world but to keep the biological engine running. There is no freedom in labor. It is a direct submission to the daily commands of survival. This is why the ancients confined labor to the private household and to slaves. They understood that labor is not the activity through which human beings transcend their animal condition. Second is the work. Work corresponds to the unnatural, artificial character of human existence. Its condition is worldliness, the building of a durable human home on earth that stands apart from wild nature. When we work, we act as homo faber, the human as maker or builder. This is the activity of the carpenter, the architect, the artist, and the toolmaker. Unlike labor, work has a clear beginning and a definitive end. You start with a raw lumber and finish building a durable table that does not vanish upon first use. It remains in the world for decades. Work produces use objects rather than consumer goods. Work creates the durable material scaffolding of our common world: houses, statues, books, bridges. These artifacts give us stability, connecting us across generations. However, Arendt notes a danger. The maker tends to treat everything as a means to an end, viewing nature merely as raw material. This instrumental attitude becomes dangerous when applied to human beings themselves. Third is action. Action is the highest, most sacred capability within the vita activa. It is the only activity that goes on directly between human beings without intermediary of things or nature. Its condition is plurality, the fundamental fact that men, not man, live on the earth. When we act, we behave as zoon politikon, the political animal. Action consists of two deeply intertwined elements: speech and deeds. Through action, we do not make an object, we initiate something entirely unexpected and new. Arendt links action to the concept of natality, the fact that every human birth represents a radical new beginning in the universe. Action is how we disclose who we are, our unique personality, rather than merely what we are. Unlike labor and work, action has no product that can be held in the hand. Its product is a story, a memory, a precedent, a relationship, the intangible but real fabric of political life. Because action takes place in the open web of human relationships rather than a controlled workshop, it possesses unique and almost tragic characteristics. Arendt identifies three defining characteristics. First is boundlessness and unpredictability. When Homo Faber builds a chair, he controls the process. But when you perform a political action, you lose all control over what follows. Your action lands in an unpredictable web of thousands of other conscious beings, each with their own projects. A single action can spark a chain reaction across nations and generations, completely outstripping your original intentions. Second is irreversibility. You cannot undo an action. Once a word is spoken or a deed is done, it is carved permanently into history. There is no rewind button. One mistaken word can destroy a friendship. One reckless decision can launch a war. Arendt is not content merely to diagnose tragedy. She asks, how do human beings cope with unpredictability and irreversibility? The power to forgive is the remedy for irreversibility. Forgiveness releases us from the unintended consequences of past mistakes. Without forgiveness, we would be permanently chained to our first wrong deed. Forgiveness is not about forgetting, it is the capacity to release someone and allow for a new beginning. The power to keep promises is the remedy for unpredictability. By making and keeping promises, like treaties, contracts, and constitutions, citizens build isolated islands of certainty in a chaotic ocean of time. The promise is the only alternative to either abandoning action entirely or accepting permanent chaos. Having mapped the classical model, the labor hidden in the private household and the action shining in the public polis, Arendt delivers her most devastating critique of modernity. The defining disaster of the modern age is the rise of the social. What is the social? The social is a monstrous hybrid space that did not exist in the ancient world. It emerged when the collective chores of the private household, like making food, managing money, organizing labor, and securing survival, broke out of the home and flooded into the public square. The social realm is quite literally collective housekeeping. When governments stop talking about justice, glory, and freedom and instead spend their time managing GDP, interest rates, and consumer logistics, politics has been swallowed by the social. The social is the realm of bureaucracy, administration, and economic management. It is a rule of nobody, an anonymous process that manages people like herds of cattle. The rise of the social destroys both true privacy and true publicity simultaneously. It destroys the private by dragging our intimate bodily needs into the glaring light of public media and bureaucratic tracking. Nothing is allowed to remain merely necessary. Everything becomes a topic of administrative intervention. It destroys the public by transforming the political theater of glory into a boring, giant administrative office. In the social realm, we do not want unique individuals performing distinct deeds. We want predictable behavior, statistical compliance, and smooth consumption. Citizenship becomes consumerism. Political debate becomes opinion polling. Arendt traces the historical events that produce the social realm. She identifies three pivotal transformations. First is the discovery and mapping of the earth. The discovery of America and the subsequent mapping of the entire globe seemed like an expansion of horizons. But Arendt argues it caused world alienation. By measuring every inch of the planet, humans shrank the globe. Instead of looking outward at a vast, mysterious world, humanity turned inward. treating the planet as a small ball of resources to be calculated. Second is the telescope and cosmic science. When Galileo turned his telescope to the heavens, he proved that our immediate senses are illusions. Science began to look at reality from the Archimedean point, a vantage point outside Earth itself. This split human beings away from their immediate sensory connection to nature, replacing the lived world with cold mathematical formulas. Third is the victory of animal laborons. The climax of Arendt's argument concerns the relationship between work and labor. The Industrial Revolution completely broke the traditional distinction. We took the tools of Homo faber, machines, technology, and used them to supercharge the cyclical process of animal laborons. Instead of building a durable, lasting human home, that is the domain of work, we built a disposable society of hyperconsumption, that is the domain of labor. We treat everything, cars, phones, and clothing, as consumer goods designed to be used briefly and thrown away. Modern humanity has forgotten how to act as political citizens, that is, zoon politikon. It has forgotten how to build durable structures as craftsmen, Homo faber. It has reduced itself entirely to animal laborons, a society of job holders and consumers who live to work and work to consume, blind to the horizon of political freedom. Arendt's diagnosis is severe, but she is not a pessimist. The entire structure of the human condition is built upon a fundamentally hopeful foundation, the fact of natality. Because every human birth represents a new beginning in the universe, because each infant is radical novelty who has never existed before, the capacity to start something new is built into the very fabric of human existence. The modern world has buried this capacity beneath layers of bureaucracy, consumption, and world alienation, but it cannot destroy it. The power to act, to gather with equals, to speak, to initiate, to forgive, and to promise remains available to every generation. Arendt's appeal is stop the mindless drift toward automatic processes, step out of your isolated household routines, enter the public square, and reclaim the dangerous, beautiful, world redeeming art of political action.